Ethan Carter, a renowned millionaire in Chicago, sat in his office behind his upscale restaurant, the jewel in the culinary crown of the city. Through the large glass window, he could oversee the entire main dining area, where every detail, from the linen tablecloths to the gleaming silverware, reflected the standard of excellence Ethan had established. He was recognized as a visionary in the culinary world, not only because of his exceptional talent as a chef, but also as a savvy businessman who had transformed his restaurant into a prestigious destination. One day, Ethan allowed a street boy to invite his mother to dine at his luxurious restaurant. As the boy walked in with the woman he called his mother, Ethan couldn't suppress a shiver that ran down his spine. Old memories suddenly surged back, immersing him in a storm of emotions. Ethan leaned back in his leather chair in the office, his gaze contemplative as he recalled his own impoverished days. At the age of 15, he had wandered the narrow, crowded streets of Chicago with an empty, growling stomach. His parents had passed away when he was very young, and his grandmother, Clara, had done everything she could to raise him. Even though she worked tirelessly, the little money she earned was often just enough to cover their most basic needs. There were days when their pantry was bare, and Ethan often felt helpless. One evening, when their meal was nothing more than a thin bowl of soup, Ethan sat in front of the empty plates, despair filling his young eyes. "Grandma, will we always have to live like this?" he asked softly, his voice full of worry. Grandma Clara, with her gentle yet strong demeanor, took his hand, infusing him with warmth and hope. "My dear, times are hard now, but you have to believe that things will get better," she said. "Life tests us, but it's perseverance and hope that will help us get through. You must study hard, work hard, and always keep your dreams alive." Her words left a deep imprint on Ethan's heart, filling him with a strong sense of determination. From that moment, he began studying diligently and developing his passion for cooking. He spent hours in the kitchen, learning from his grandmother not only how to cook but also the art of creatively combining ingredients. Grandma Clara, with her decades of experience as a cook, was his first and most influential teacher. While other children played in the streets, Ethan would rush home, eager to learn and discover the wonders of the kitchen. The kitchen became more than just a place for cooking. It held his most cherished memories and lessons in life. Today, that humble kitchen in their home was Ethan's kingdom, where every ingredient had its place and every recipe carried a story. Grandma Clara often explained that cooking was both an art and a science. She carefully guided Ethan's small hands, showing him how to use a knife, how to season food, and how to measure ingredients accurately. "Why do we use this much salt, Grandma?" Ethan asked curiously, watching her every move. She smiled and replied, "Cooking, my dear, is like weaving a delicate tapestry of flavors. Every pinch of salt can change a dish, just as every word can tell a different story." She didn't just teach him cooking techniques but also imparted the power of the little details. Those early lessons laid the foundation for Ethan's love of cooking. She often praised him, "You're becoming a real chef." Grandma Clara knew that one day, these skills would save him and serve as the means to transform his life forever. She also used to say, "Cooking doesn't just nourish the body, it feeds the soul and connects people." Her words echoed in Ethan's mind, reminding him that his passion for cooking could transform not only ingredients into meals, but also his entire life. One day, Ethan came home after a long day at school. The excitement of seeing Grandma Clara and sharing his day's experiences filled him with joy. He had aced his math test and couldn't wait to tell her, knowing it would make her proud. "I'm home," Ethan shouted, expecting the usual reply from the kitchen, where the delicious aroma of something cooking often lingered. But there was no response. The unusual silence sent a wave of anxiety through Ethan. He set his backpack down with a heavy thud and quickly walked through the small house, calling out, "Grandma, are you here?" Still, there was no answer. When he entered the kitchen, everything was as neatly arranged as ever, but she wasn't there. His heart raced as he made his way toward her room, his worry mounting with each step. Ethan gently knocked on the door. "Grandma, are you okay?" There was no reply, He slowly opened the door to find the room dim, the curtains drawn to block out the afternoon light. A soft glow filtered through, illuminating Grandma Clara lying on the bed, appearing to be peacefully asleep. "Grandma," Ethan called softly, moving closer. Her face was serene, but something was wrong. An ominous stillness filled the room. With trembling hands, Ethan touched her arm. It was cold. "Grandma, please wake up," he whispered, his heart clenching with a dreadful realization. When the heartbreaking reality set in that she was no longer breathing, a wave of panic swept over him. Ethan rushed to grab the phone, calling for help, his voice shaking as he spoke to the dispatcher. Moments later, everything unfolded in a blur, with medics arriving and confirming his worst fear. Grandma Clara had passed away, the victim of a heart attack in her sleep. The small house was now filled with an overwhelming loneliness. After the medics left, Ethan sat by her bedside, holding her cold hand, tears streaming down his face. Whispers of gratitude and love for Grandma Clara filled Ethan's mind. Every memory of the moments they had shared flooded his heart, as if she were still there, reminding him to be strong and keep moving forward, no matter what. The silence in the room, every word he whispered, and his effort to hold back his emotions were all testaments to one thing. "I'll make you proud, Grandma," Ethan promised. That night was one of the longest nights of Ethan's life. He sat in the kitchen, surrounded by the recipes and tools Grandma Clara had once used. Her absence weighed heavily on him. Having lost his parents so young, and now with Grandma Clara, his last family, gone, a deep loneliness enveloped him. Yet, deep inside, Ethan knew he had to honor her memory. He resolved that, no matter how hard it would be, he would keep pushing forward, using her lessons as his guide. Every morning, Ethan woke up with a determination to find work, a job that could sustain him and continue Grandma Clara's legacy in the culinary world. At 15, he knew his options were limited, but his passion and cooking skills gave him hope. He prepared simple resumes, listing his experience learning from his grandmother, and set off through the streets of Chicago, entering every restaurant he passed. The first restaurant he walked into was a small, cozy place. The receptionist greeted him with a smile, but upon seeing his age and humble clothes, her expression changed. "Sorry, kid, we're looking for someone with more experience," she said, handing back his resume without really looking at it. Ethan felt a pang of hurt, but he politely thanked her and left, trying not to let the rejection shake his resolve. He continued to visit several more restaurants, but the reactions were always the same. As the day went on, Ethan's heart grew heavy, but he remembered Grandma Clara's words of encouragement. Never give up. By the end of the day, his feet ached and his heart felt burdened. Ethan sat on a park bench watching the sunset. He thought about going home, but something inside him refused to let him quit. "I know I can do this. I just need someone to believe in me," he whispered. That's when he noticed a restaurant across the street. It looked more modern and inviting than the others. Ethan took a deep breath, crossed the road, and walked in. He was greeted by a woman with a warm smile. "How can I help you?" she asked. His voice trembling but full of hope, Ethan replied, "I'm looking for a chance to work in the kitchen. I learned to cook from my grandmother, and while I'm young, I'm willing to learn and work hard." The woman, Penelope Clark, observed Ethan for a moment before smiling. "Why don't you show me what you can do? We have an opening in the kitchen today for a trial. Let's see what you've got." That moment became a turning point in Ethan's life. Finally, someone was willing to give him the chance he so desperately needed. He followed Penelope into the kitchen, his heart racing but filled with hope. This was his opportunity to prove himself, and he was determined to make the most of it. Penelope watched as Ethan began preparing a dish. The modern kitchen was full of quality equipment and ingredients he had only dreamed of using. Penelope, her apron bearing the stains of hard days' work in the kitchen, stood nearby, ready to assess what Ethan could do. This was the moment he had been waiting for, and he was determined to make his dream a reality. Grandma Clara had been known not only for her incredible cooking skills, but also for her fair judgment and open heart. Today, It wasn't her but Penelope Clark, the restaurant supervisor, who saw something different in Ethan. As she looked at the young boy, Penelope didn't just see inexperience but also the potential and intense passion shining in his eyes. "So, Ethan, what will you prepare for us today?" she asked, her tone encouraging. Ethan felt a wave of anxiety churn in his stomach, but he had already made up his mind. "I'll make spaghetti," he replied, trying to mask his nerves with confidence. Penelope nodded, smiling gently, and let him begin. Ethan selected his ingredients with the care Grandma Clara had taught him. He knew spaghetti was a simple dish, but simplicity often held the key to perfection. As he worked, he could feel Penelope's eyes on him, watching his every move. Ethan chose fresh tomatoes, garlic, and basil, simple ingredients that, when done right, could elevate pasta into a memorable dish. When he finished, he plated the dish and presented it to Penelope, who waited with a neutral expression. Silence enveloped the room as she tasted the food, making Ethan feel like all sound had vanished. Finally, Penelope set her fork down and looked at him. "This spaghetti is simple, yes, but you've shown that you understand the balance of flavors, which is very important for a chef," she said. Ethan could hardly believe her words. "I believe that, with proper training, you could become a great chef," Penelope continued, a bright smile on her face. "Your willingness to learn and work hard is more important than any fancy technique." Ethan's joy at that moment was indescribable. He could only stammer, "Yes, thank you so much." Penelope nodded and said, "Tomorrow, you'll start as a kitchen assistant. I'll teach you everything I know. But remember, the kitchen demands passion and patience. If you hold on to those, there's nothing you can't achieve." Filled with gratitude and excitement, Ethan promised to do his very best. As Ethan left the restaurant that evening, the darkness had settled over Chicago, but a new chapter of his life had just begun. All thanks to the faith that Penelope Clark had placed in him. The next day, Ethan began his journey as a kitchen assistant at Penelope's restaurant. At first, his tasks were simple, but Ethan quickly seized every opportunity to learn. Penelope, a blend of sternness and patience, started teaching Ethan advanced cooking techniques, from precise vegetable cuts to the art of slow cooking at low temperatures. Each lesson was a revelation, and Ethan devoted himself entirely to learning. As weeks turned into months, he began to take on greater responsibilities. One day, Penelope entrusted Ethan with preparing the main course during a busy dinner service. This was a real test, demanding that he handle pressure and showcase his skills. With steady hands and a surprising sense of calm, Ethan managed the kitchen team, delegating tasks and ensuring every dish was perfect. Penelope watched with a satisfied smile as she witnessed the young, promising chef at work. When the evening ended, Penelope placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder and said, "You did exceptionally well today, Ethan. You have a bright future if you keep this up." Those simple words filled Ethan with immense pride and motivation. He realized that every long hour in the kitchen, every moment of doubt or frustration, had been worth it. Ethan continued to grow each day, the kitchen becoming a place where he was constantly learning. He began experimenting with new flavors and techniques, blending the traditional knowledge his grandmother Clara had passed down with the innovations he learned from Penelope. This fusion of old and new not only enriched Ethan's culinary art but also brought a fresh vibrancy to the restaurant's menu, which customers adored. 3 years had passed since Ethan started working at Penelope Clark's restaurant. In that time, he had evolved from a young, inexperienced apprentice into a confident and skilled chef, respected by his colleagues and by Penelope herself. Now, at 18, Ethan felt it was time to broaden his horizons and seek new opportunities to further his career. The idea of attending a culinary school in New York had begun to take shape in his mind, driven by his desire to explore new challenges and deepen his culinary knowledge. One quiet afternoon after the restaurant service had ended, Ethan found Penelope in the small office at the back, where she often did the bookkeeping and planned the menu. "Penelope, may I speak with you?" Ethan began, his voice hesitant. Penelope looked up at him with curiosity and nodded, signaling for him to continue. "I've been thinking a lot about my future," Ethan explained. I've decided I want to attend culinary school in New York. I think it's the necessary next step to truly become the chef I aspire to be. Penelope studied Ethan for a moment, her eyes measuring the determination and conviction in his words. Ethan, I always knew this day would come, she said, with a mixture of pride and sadness. You're incredibly talented, and your passion can't be contained within these walls. But this is a big change. New York is vast, and life there can be very different from what you're used to here. I know, Ethan replied, displaying a maturity that even he found surprising. I've prepared for it, or at least I've tried. I've saved some of the money I've earned here and done a lot of research. I know there will be challenges, but there will also be many opportunities to learn and grow. I want to become one of the best, and to do that, I have to step out of my comfort zone. Penelope nodded, understanding the resolve of the young man she had helped shape. I'll support you, Ethan. You have my full backing. I'll miss you every day, but part of being a mentor is knowing when to let your student fly. And you're ready to soar. The following weeks were a whirlwind of preparation. Ethan spent many nights studying for the entrance exams, while by day he continued working at the restaurant, absorbing every bit of knowledge he could from Penelope and the other chefs. On the day Ethan left, the atmosphere in the restaurant was more subdued than usual, filled with emotion. Penelope called Ethan over to a quiet corner, away from the hustle of the kitchen, which was busy preparing the last meals of the day. Penelope began, her voice gentle but firm. Ethan, today is a big day. You're embarking on a new chapter in your life, one I always knew would come. Remember, it's not just about learning to cook, it's about learning about life. Trust yourself, as I have always trusted you, and never stop striving for excellence. Ethan tried to hold back tears, his voice thick with emotion. Penelope, I wouldn't have come this far without you. You believed in me when I had so little, and you taught me not just to love the kitchen but to respect every ingredient and every process. That's something I'll carry with me in every dish I make. You taught me to be a better chef and a better person. I promise to honor your faith in me and to keep growing. Penelope placed her hand on Ethan's shoulder, her own eyes glistening with tears. Ethan, I knew you were special from the moment you walked into the kitchen with determination and an open heart. You're going to do incredible things. I'm sure of it. And whenever you feel doubt or exhaustion, remember where you started and the challenges you've overcome. You'll always have a home here and a mentor cheering you on. Wherever you go, with a final, heartfelt hug, they said goodbye. Ethan left, carrying Penelope's words in his heart, ready to face the challenges of culinary school and beyond, empowered by the unconditional support of the woman who had transformed him from a curious boy into a promising young chef. Upon arriving in New York, Ethan immersed himself in his studies, determined to absorb all the knowledge the prestigious school could offer. His passion and dedication did not go unnoticed, and soon, he began to stand out among his peers. Ethan excelled in both the practical and theoretical aspects of culinary school, winning numerous awards in cooking competitions and establishing himself as a rising star in the culinary world. Over time, his talent caught the attention of some renowned restaurants, and Ethan accepted several offers to gain experience in various environments and explore different culinary styles. This phase of Ethan's career was intense yet immensely rewarding. He continued refining his skills and developed a unique culinary vision for the future. After 8 years of tireless studying and gaining real-world experience, Ethan felt ready to pursue his ultimate dream, opening his own restaurant. Wanting to give back to the community that had witnessed his growth, he decided to establish his restaurant in Chicago. He purchased a piece of land and began building the restaurant from the ground up, creating a space that reflected both his personal journey and his culinary vision. However, as the restaurant took shape, Ethan felt the absence of one crucial person in his life: Penelope Clark, the mentor who had profoundly influenced his path. He wanted to share his success with her. But when he searched for her, Ethan discovered that Penelope's restaurant had closed, and she had moved away from the city. No one seemed to know where she had gone. Though disappointed, Ethan understood that life often unfolds in unexpected ways, and he had to keep moving forward with his career. Over time, Ethan's restaurant became a resounding success. He not only brought innovation and fresh energy to Chicago's culinary scene, but also turned the place into a gathering spot for food lovers from around the world. The restaurant's success cemented Ethan's reputation as a top chef and entrepreneur, fulfilling the promise he had made to himself and to his beloved mentor, Penelope. One sunny morning, as Ethan was heading to his restaurant, he noticed a street boy sitting on the sidewalk across the street. The boy was dressed in ragged, dirty clothes, with a determined expression as he offered candy to passers-by, though few paid him any attention. Ethan's heart ached at the sight, recalling his own hardships as a child. He crossed the street and approached the boy with a gentle smile. "Hello there. What's your name?" Ethan asked, crouching down to meet the boy's eyes. "My name is Hudson," the boy replied, his large, tired eyes full of curiosity as he looked at Ethan. "Hi, Hudson. I own a restaurant just across the street. Would you like to come in and have something to eat?" Ethan offered, smiling and nodding toward his restaurant. Hudson hesitated for a moment, clearly surprised by the offer. But then, a small smile appeared on his dirty face. "I'd really like that, sir. Thank you so much," he whispered, his voice full of emotion. Ethan led Hudson into the restaurant, signaling to his staff that everything was all right. They sat at a discreet table near the kitchen, where Ethan asked a chef to prepare something warm and nourishing. As they waited, Ethan watched Hudson look around with awe and curiosity. When the meal arrived, a plate of roasted chicken with mashed potatoes, the boy couldn't hide his joy and excitement, his eyes lighting up with gratitude. Ethan watched Hudson eat, seeing the boy savor each bite with the hunger only someone who has truly known want could understand. Hudson ate slowly and deliberately, as if every piece of roasted chicken and mashed potatoes were a luxury he didn't dare waste. Ethan felt a familiar ache in his heart, remembering the days when a meal like that had been a luxury for him as well. When Hudson had finished and looked more at ease, Ethan decided to learn more about the boy who seemed to carry the weight of the world on his small shoulders. "Hudson, tell me a bit about your family. Do you have any siblings? Or is it just you and your mother?" Ethan asked, his voice gentle and warm. Hudson put down his fork on the now empty plate, taking a deep breath before answering. "It's just me and my mom now," he said, his voice tinged with sadness, his eyes looking down at the table to avoid Ethan's gaze. "My dad, he passed away some time ago," the boy continued, his voice cracking, the pain still fresh as an open wound. Ethan felt a deep connection to Hudson, remembering his own grief at losing loved ones. He leaned in, giving the boy his full attention and compassion. "I'm so sorry to hear that, Hudson. It must be really hard for you and your mom," Ethan said, his voice full of empathy. Hudson hesitated, clearly weighing how much to share about his circumstances. "Yeah, it's been hard," Hudson admitted. "My mom's sick, and she can't work much, so I sell candy to help pay the bills." Hudson lifted his gaze, eyes filled with a resilience forced upon him by circumstance. "We just moved here recently. This is the city where my mom grew up, but she moved away when she met my dad. After he passed, she decided to come back," the boy explained, his voice tinged with sadness and a sense of acceptance. Ethan felt a wave of empathy wash over him. "Taking care of those you love is a noble thing," Ethan said, his voice full of warmth. "But you need support too. Do you have anyone else here to help?" Hudson shook his head, his voice sounding lonely. "No, it's just me and my mom," he said, his eyes full of hope mixed with a hint of uncertainty. "Mr. Ethan," Hudson began, his voice trembling a bit, "I think my mom is really struggling. She's gotten so thin and sad since my dad passed away, and I thought that maybe a meal here could make her feel a little better," he said, his eyes brimming with sincerity and a fragile hope. Ethan was deeply moved by Hudson's simple and heartfelt request. "Of course, Hudson," Ethan responded, his voice warm. "It would be an honor to have your mother as our guest. We'll make sure she has a special dinner, a comfortable place to relax and feel better. Tell her she's more than welcome here." Hudson's eyes lit up, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you so much. My mom will be so happy," he replied, his voice quivering. Ethan smiled, his eyes sparkling. Don't thank me just yet. This is only the beginning. We'll make this dinner a beautiful memory. Then we'll figure out a way to support you and your mom in the long term. Maybe we can find a more stable income for you or a program to help with your mom's health, Ethan said, already forming plans in his mind. Hudson could hardly believe the sudden change in his fortune. I'll tell my mom tonight, he said, his voice full of emotion. I think she'll be really happy. Ethan nodded with satisfaction. Wonderful. Tell her we're looking forward to having both of you. And remember, this is just the first step. We'll find a way to make sure you both have what you need. That's a promise, Ethan said. Hudson nodded, tears of relief and gratitude welling up in his eyes. He picked up his nearly empty box of candies, thanked Ethan again, and waved goodbye. Ethan watched Hudson walk away, a sense of responsibility pressing on him but also filling him with purpose. When Hudson returned to the place where he and his mother were staying, he found her sitting and reading, her face gaunt and tired from the weight of their hardships. Mom, I have some good news, Hudson said, trying to inject some joy into their difficult circumstances. His mother looked up, her face showing a flicker of curiosity. What is it, my boy? She asked, her voice weak but encouraging. Hudson sat beside her and recounted the story about the meal at the restaurant and Ethan's invitation. His mother smiled faintly, something she hadn't done often since her husband had passed away. That sounds wonderful, Hudson. Do you think he's sincere? She asked, her voice tinged with worry, the product of years of broken promises and the struggles the family had endured. I think so, Mom, Hudson replied, his eyes shining with belief. He was really kind, and the restaurant is beautiful. I think this could be a fresh start for us. His mother sighed, a mix of hope and hesitation. Maybe so, my dear. It would be nice to have some help, she murmured, allowing herself a sliver of hope. Hudson smiled, feeling a small but significant joy at the thought of bringing some light into their difficult life. Ethan was speechless as he listened to the tearful story from Penelope, the most wonderful teacher and mentor he'd ever had. The image of a strong, energetic Penelope Clark in that small kitchen years ago was a stark contrast to the woman now before him, who had endured so much suffering and loss. Penelope spoke in a soft, sorrowful voice, each word cutting into Ethan's heart, and he felt her pain deeply. As Hudson embraced his mother, he felt how fragile and weak she was in his arms. It will be okay, Mom, Hudson whispered, trying to offer comfort. We'll go to dinner together and see what happens. I promise I'll always be here for you. The boy felt he had managed to give his mother a little hope, even if it was small, in their challenging life. That evening, as Chicago's lights began to twinkle against the night sky, Hudson and his mother slowly made their way down the street, heading toward Ethan's restaurant. Penelope was nervous, her eyes glancing down at her worn-out clothes, feeling unworthy of entering such an elegant place. Hudson noticed his mother's unease and squeezed her hand. Mom, everything will be all right. The restaurant owner is very kind. You'll see, he said, trying to soothe her fears. Penelope sighed, summoning her courage. I just don't want to embarrass you, she mumbled, her voice trembling. Hudson smiled gently. I could never be embarrassed by you. You're the best mom in the world, he assured her. Come on, we'll get through this together. The boy led his mother to the entrance of the restaurant, where Ethan was greeting some guests with a warm smile. Hudson gently pulled his mother forward. Hello, Mr. Ethan, he called out as they approached the doorway. Ethan turned when he heard Hudson's voice and broke into a radiant smile upon seeing the boy. Hudson, it's so good to see you. And this must be your mother. Ethan began, but his words suddenly faltered as his eyes met Penelope's. For a moment, the world seemed to freeze. Penelope? He murmured, disbelief filling his voice. Recognition dawned across his face. Penelope was equally shocked, her heart pounding in her chest. Ethan Taylor? She responded, her voice a mix of surprise and a touch of joy. The two of them stood there, eyes locked, as memories of years past came flooding back. The days in that small kitchen, filled with laughter and invaluable culinary lessons. Hudson looked back and forth between them, puzzled by the unexpected connection. "I didn't know. You two know each other?" he asked, his eyes wide with curiosity. Penelope stepped forward, a tear slipping down her cheek. "Levi, I didn't know this was your restaurant. Hudson just told me that the owner wanted to help us," she explained, her voice thick with emotion. Ethan quickly regained his composure, opening his arms to embrace his old mentor. "Penelope, it doesn't matter how you came here. I'm just glad you did. Come inside and we'll talk. There's so much to catch up on." Ethan led them into the restaurant, where past and present intertwined in ways no one could have anticipated. He chose a quiet table, away from the hustle of the other diners, so they could talk privately. Penelope sat down, her eyes taking in the magnificent restaurant. Memories washed over her. The days she had taught Ethan how to chop vegetables, season dishes, and manage a kitchen. Pride sparkled in her eyes as she realized that Ethan had truly made his dream come true. "I never imagined that one day I'd be sitting in your restaurant like this," Penelope said, her voice trembling with emotion. "You've accomplished so much, Ethan." Ethan smiled softly. "It's all thanks to you, Penelope. Without your lessons and your belief in me, I wouldn't be here today." "I'm so happy you're here," he said, his eyes full of joy and deep care at their reunion. Penelope bowed her head, tears beginning to stream down her face. "Life has been such a struggle since we lost touch," she admitted, her voice breaking with pain. "I fell into dark times. Depression became my companion, and Hudson was the only light that kept me going." Ethan listened, his heart heavy. "I'm so sorry for everything you've been through, Penelope. I wish I could have been there to help. But now that we've found each other again, I want to do everything I can to support you and Hudson," he said, his resolve clear in his voice. Penelope looked up, a fragile smile forming. "Thank you, Ethan. Just being here and treated with kindness is more than I could have asked for. You've given me hope." The soft lights of the restaurant enveloped them, as if the universe had reunited them at the perfect moment. Ethan squeezed Penelope's hand, knowing that from here on out, they would find a way to rebuild their lives and overcome any challenge, writing a new chapter full of hope and faith together. As Penelope tried to keep her composure, Ethan listened to every word she spoke, feeling a powerful mix of emotions. Her pain and struggles struck a deep chord, igniting his empathy and a fierce desire to help. "Penelope, thank you for sharing your story with me," Ethan said sincerely. "I can't imagine how hard it's been for you. But now you're not alone anymore. We'll find a way to help you and Hudson through this. I promise I'll do everything I can to help you build a better future," he said, reaching across the table to hold her hand in a gesture of support and solidarity. Penelope held onto Ethan's hand, feeling the warmth and steadiness in his touch. She took a deep breath, trying to contain the emotions welling up. "Ethan, your words mean more than you could ever know. I felt so lost and broken. Having someone willing to help like this, it's more than I dared to hope for when I came back to Chicago," she said, her voice a mix of gratitude and disbelief. Ethan looked at Penelope, reinforcing his promise with genuine sincerity. "Penelope, you saw potential in me when I was just a kid. Now it's my turn to give back. You're valuable and deserve more than years of struggle." Penelope smiled, her eyes shining with newfound hope. They shared a heartfelt meal, and afterward, Ethan arranged for his driver to take Penelope and Hudson to a hotel. The next day, Ethan personally took Penelope to a clinic to address her health issues. As they arrived, he helped her out of the car and walked her inside. "I'll take care of everything, Penelope. You just focus on getting better," he said, embracing her with comforting strength. Over the following months, Penelope underwent intensive treatment, gradually recovering her physical and mental health. Ethan rented a comfortable house for her and Hudson, who now attended a good school. Penelope began to see a hopeful path forward. When she felt strong enough, Ethan invited her to the restaurant to discuss the next chapter of her life. During a warm dinner at the restaurant, Ethan said, "Now that you're feeling better, I'd love for you to join the restaurant team, not just as a staff member but as part of our creative group. You have so much to offer, and I'd love for your talent and passion to enrich our menu. Penelope nearly teared up at the offer. Working in a kitchen again, especially here with you, is truly a dream come true, she said, her voice full of emotion. Thank you, Ethan, for everything. The evening continued with stories, laughter, and plans for the future, celebrating not only Penelope's rebirth, but also the beauty of a friendship that had withstood time and trials. When Penelope stepped into the restaurant's kitchen on her first day back, she felt both nervous and exhilarated. The sounds, scents, and lively rhythm of the kitchen welcomed her back. Memories of past days came flooding back, bringing a joy she hadn't felt in years. Penelope put on a new apron, her hands touching each ingredient with a sense of familiarity, as if she had never left this place. It feels like I never left, she whispered to herself, a smile spreading across her face as she rearranged her workstation. Ethan observed from afar, a satisfied smile on his face. Are you ready for today's challenge, Penelope? He asked, stepping forward with an encouraging gesture. Penelope nodded, taking a deep breath. I'm more ready than ever. Thank you, Ethan, for giving me this chance to rediscover my passion, she replied, her voice steady. As the dinner service began, Penelope found herself moving seamlessly into the frenzied rhythm of the kitchen, directing the team with confidence and clarity. Every dish she completed radiated the talent that had long been buried. In a brief moment of calm when the kitchen quieted down, Penelope looked through the window into the dining area, seeing families, couples, and friends laughing and sharing meals. She realized she was not just nourishing their bodies but also their souls. By the end of the night, as the team cleaned up and prepared for the next day, Penelope felt a deep sense of fulfillment, not just in the kitchen but in life. Ethan approached Penelope with 2 glasses of wine, his eyes glowing with pride and relief. You did an extraordinary job today, Penelope. How do you feel? He asked, handing her one of the glasses. Penelope looked at the wine glass, then at Ethan's face, feeling a surge of gratitude. I feel alive, Ethan, she said, her voice sparkling with joy. Like I've finally come back to myself. There aren't enough words to thank you for this. They raised their glasses together, celebrating not just a successful day but the long journey of renewal and hope. That glass of wine was not just a gesture of celebration but a symbol of Penelope's journey back to herself. Her joy and passion for cooking had once again found their place in the familiar warmth of the kitchen, where every dish she prepared was a tribute to resilience and rebirth. Hudson, now attending one of the best schools in Chicago, watched his mother's transformation with pride and admiration. He had grown from a boy selling candy on the streets into a promising student, passionate about learning and developing new skills. Visiting the restaurant after school became one of his favorite moments of the day. He not only witnessed his mother at work but also learned from Ethan, whom he regarded as both a friend and a respected mentor. One day, as the 3 of them sat together chatting after work, Hudson said, Ethan, thank you for everything you've done for us, for believing in my mom, and for giving me a chance to learn and grow. You've changed our lives forever. Penelope, her eyes filled with joy and happiness, hugged her son tightly. Hudson, my love, having you and Ethan by my side is more than I could ever ask for. Every struggle, every victory, has been worth it because we faced it together, she said, her voice breaking with emotion. Ethan looked at the 2 of them, his heart full of contentment and peace. I just did the right thing, he replied sincerely. Gratitude is a powerful force that drives us to give back and make a difference. Seeing both of you happy and thriving is the greatest reward I could ask for. Everything we've done together isn't just about business or food. It's about restoring life and hope. They all laughed, raising their glasses one more time before returning to the restaurant work. The story of Penelope, Ethan, and Hudson stood as a testament to the power of gratitude, mutual support, and the ability to rebuild when there is faith and love. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe to the channel. It helps me keep sharing meaningful stories every day. Don't miss the next story coming up on your screen. Thank you so much for your support, and see you soon.